The horror anthology series known as VHS is back with a new installment that's coming to Shudder on October 6th. I got to check it out just a tad bit early. Is it worth your time? Stick around and find out. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a movie that I got to check out just a little bit early that's going to be hitting the horror streaming service Shudder later this week on October 6th, and that film is called VHS 85. Similar to the other installments in this franchise, we have a slew of directors, people like David Bruckner, Scott Derrickson, Natasha Kermani, Mike P. Nelson, and Gigi Saul Guerrero. And this film stars a slew of different people, including people like Freddy Rodriguez, James Ransone, Jordan Belfi, Chelsea Grant, and many more. Before we get too far into this review, I'd like to say a big thanks to those kind folks over at Shudder for sending me over an early screener for this movie. This movie actually just premiered a little bit over a week ago, actually, at the Fantastic Fest, and then had a premiere just, I think, yesterday, actually, as of filming this, on the 1st of October at Beyond Fest. And I'm one of the other early audiences that are getting to check this out before it hits its wide release on Shudder later this week on October 6th. So a big thanks to those kind folks again at Shudder for sending me over a screener. If you're unfamiliar with the VHS franchise, essentially it is a horror anthology series that takes the lens of the old school VHS camera, the home recording kind of vibe from the 80s and 90s most notably, and puts a horror spin on it. It has stories that are told in that classic found footage format for the most part, that have this old kind of staticky look to the overall picture, a lot of times giving a creep factor. I haven't seen all of the films in this franchise, but I have seen the first couple, and I saw the one that they released last year that I also got an early screener for, VHS 99, that placed us in the late 90s. Well, here we are now with VHS 85 that sets us right in the middle of the 80s, and similar to the other ones that have been decade based, they, do what they can to make it feel and look like it's in the 80s, as well as having tons of references and just moments in dialogue that are obviously referencing things that happened in the 80s. And so the question is, what did I think about VHS 85? Well, what I'll start this off by saying is, similar to the previous installments in this franchise, I think there is some interesting filmmaking tactics that are used, most notably when it comes to the practical effects. You can tell that they have a lot of fun making these short, kind of weird, all over the place shorts in all of these movies, and a lot of times being able to showcase special effects. And this film has some notable directors here, like one of the ones I mentioned was Scott Derrickson, who directed films like Doctor Strange. And so, going into this, I was rather intrigued. I think the VHS franchise is an intriguing franchise. I always like the idea of a horror anthology movie. And so I like to see what VHS is always going to do. And when I think of VHS 99 from last year, while I didn't love the film, I appreciated it and I enjoyed it for the most part. I think it was a solid enough film. Not something I think people were going to love all around, but something that I definitely think would find its audience and would probably please VHS fans. But here we are now with 85, and quite frankly, if I'm completely and utterly honest, outside of the praises I gave in terms of practical effects, I found this to be arguably one of the worst movies I've seen this year. Now, based on some of the reception I've already seen online on sites like Letterboxd and Rotten Tomatoes, I may be in the minority on that, but quite frankly, I found VHS 85 to be a chore to watch. Again, similar to those other films in the franchise, there are some great moments of use of practical effects, and I think that low budget feel kind of put together with the fact that you're seeing the entire story told through old-timey cameras from the 80s and 90s gives it this creepy factor and gives it this different feel that is unique to the VHS franchise. However, at this point, if I'm completely and utterly honest, I feel like the VHS franchise has kind of lost steam. I think what made it a little bit eerie and creepy with the first couple of installments, and I remember seeing those, posters and thinking, wow, this is pretty cool, has kind of turned into something that's just so hokey and so dumb at this point that I just can't ever really find myself all that ingrained in what's going on. And quite frankly, watching this time around, I usually have at least a couple of shorts or a couple of stories that are within this anthology that I can at least grip onto. There's usually a couple that I'm like, that was kind of not all that great or not all that creepy or just kind of stupid altogether. But honestly, when I really think about it, with VHS 85, I saw it with myself, my fiance, and my roommate, the Big Rob Theory, and the three of us were just wildly bored the entire time. We were bored. It was literally a chore to get through. We kept looking at the screen, just wondering, when is this ever going to get compelling or good? When are any of these shorts going to get cool? And quite frankly, what I will say is something that this film did that some of the previous ones haven't done as much is have a couple of the shorts that had small moments that interconnected with one another, which did pique our interest. It was in those moments I noticed that myself, my fiance, and Robbie were all having these moments of kind of being intrigued to see where it would go. We found ourselves more intrigued as we started to see little connective tissue between some of these shorts. But it's so brief and so kind of thrown away, and there's mostly a lack of connection between all these shorts, as it typically should be, that honestly I just could not find myself engaged in what was going on here. Most of these shorts for me were just boring to watch. Again, utilizing some solid practical effects and some interesting filmmaking tactics, but when it comes down to the reason I watch movies, especially a horror movie and an anthology movie, there just wasn't anything here for me to really grip onto. I didn't care about any of the anthology stories that were told in here. I didn't care about any of the shorts whatsoever. I didn't care about any of the characters. I was never really shocked or blown away by anything that happened. I was intrigued by a couple of moments, and I do think there were some compelling moments, or well done moments is probably the best way to put it. But quite frankly, I'm sitting here in front of the camera thinking to myself, I want to talk about this movie to get a review out on the channel. I got sent the copy of the movie. I feel like I need to at least kind of ramble some thoughts about it. But quite frankly, guys, VHS 85 for me was a snore fest. I found this to just be just a slog. I really genuinely don't even know what to say about this movie. Again, it's about kind of this low budget weird feeling that you get from these movies more often than not. It has an individual charm, and I felt that when I saw last year's film 99, but now this time around with 85, I just feel like they just didn't hit the nail on the head. I didn't care about any of the shorts. I didn't really feel myself ever impressed or excited to see where it was going to go. I was scratching my head the entire time, just incredibly bored. And quite frankly, I don't think that VHS 85 is really worth watching. I'm very curious to see what people think about this as this becomes readily available to the general public, as most people who have seen it now are, you know, probably other people who talk about movies online, you know, via some of these festivals that they've shown it at. But I'm really curious to see what the average moviegoer thinks when this movie comes out on Shudder, you know. So if you watched that movie on Shudder, you watch this movie and that's what brought you here, and you're just maybe in a similar boat as I am, please leave a comment down below. And even if you're not, leave a comment down below and let me know where you stand on this movie, because when it comes to VHS 85, I genuinely can say that I think this is the worst movie I've seen this year. There was just nothing about it that was interesting, exciting, engaging. There was nothing about it that made me want to go tell somebody to go watch it. All I can really tell you guys is just don't waste your time, honestly. If you have Shudder and you just want to throw something on just to kind of see and kind of make your own opinion on it, sure, I totally can't take that away from you. I'm like that. But quite frankly, I can genuinely say that I think that you are better off watching anything else, even just rewatching something that you already know to be good. Because quite frankly, when it comes down to VHS 85, I just was like kind of flabbergasted by how disinterested I was as I was watching it. I was blown away at how bored I was while I was watching this movie. I was blown away at the fact that I saw that it has a decent score on Rotten Tomatoes and that it had a decent score on things like Letterboxd. And while there was plenty of negative reviews within all that, I was just blown away to see that there was a general percentage of the audience that was enjoying this. And I really have to be honest and just speak my truth and say that VHS 85 for me was terrible. I really thoroughly didn't enjoy it. And with all the big names that are attached to this and some of the actors that were familiar to me, I'm just shocked by that. You know, I was hoping to at least enjoy one or two of the sketches that are in here. And while there was a couple that at least had my interest for a little bit, I never ended a single one of those stories in this movie and ever felt kind of inkling to want to continue watching, or, you know, I kind of would lose interest at the end of each and every single one of these stories, if not by the time it already started or just right as it was starting. As you can tell, I'm a little bit all over the place, and I think for me, it's like a lot of times, if you've been watching this channel for a while, I like to sit here and break down the themes and all these different things about a movie. But when it comes down to something like this, that's just trying to create these kind of crazy scenario stories that you're seeing via this found footage format, you want to be gripped, you know? And again, I think that the main positive I can really give it is the fact that it utilizes some solid filmmaking tactics at times when it comes down to a found footage kind of, perspective, and that there's some solid practical effects. But as something that, again, is gripping, was engaging, was something I want to go tell others to watch, I genuinely found VHS 85 to be a chore to watch. I know I've been rambling a little bit here, so if you stuck around this long, a big thanks to you guys for watching this video at this point. Genuinely hit that like button down below if you guys enjoyed this video, if you agree with me, whatever the case may be, and leave your comments down below. I have to know what people think about VHS 85, because for me, I will never be watching this movie ever again, and quite frankly, it puts me off at the idea of even watching another VHS film in the future. I think that what made this franchise interesting at the very start is starting to lose steam a little bit, especially as they start to lean into the decade thing that they've been doing. And quite frankly, outside of a few moments where you have people in attire and just like the overall look of the film, because it's meant to look like it was filmed in one of those old school cameras that you just have lying around at home, outside of that element, I genuinely never really felt like we were in the 80s. There wasn't really anything about this for me that felt super 80s. There's people that had haircuts and, some outfits in moments, but quite frankly, there are also some of the specials that are in here, or some of the stories that are in here, that didn't even feel like the 80s at all. Like, it could have been set in any decade, and it didn't necessarily feel 80s. It could have been in the early 90s. It could have been in the late 70s. There was not a lot about this that genuinely, to me, felt like super 80s when you think of other media that brings 80s to life. It just didn't feel that way to me. And just overall, VHS 85 was not a good time. So I'm going to stop repeating the same things over and over again and just rambling. If anything, this is kind of just a rant video more so than a review. But a big thanks to you guys for watching. Definitely leave a comment down below. As I said, hit that like button, subscribe, and do all that YouTube stuff. And I'll see you beautiful people in the next one. Bye-bye.